pin pulled out, which I bought the license for. I spent 15 or 18 or something like that dollars on this, so this thing better be decent. All right. So first off, I want to give a disclaimer. I've been a team coach for several months, and we've worked with a lot of different compositions. I spent a lot of time analyzing pro analysis and getting information from more experienced coaches. That's the way to get better, and it has been, and it will be for some time. So when I speak really decisively about a lot of this stuff, a good chunk of it is from my personal experience with working with a team in actual GM scrims. However, some of my experience comes off of not hearsay, but off of other coaches' analysis. And even though I have done my best to try and look at things through my own eyes and analyze things from my own standpoint, for most compositions, I haven't been able to do it for every composition. So there is a chance that although I can guarantee you this will be 95% accurate, there is a chance that I'm going to misstate something or miss a composition analysis, and you'll just have to bear with me here. But for the most part, I think I'll be able to give a better analysis of what these compositions are supposed to do, whether these compositions are any good, and probably most importantly, could we make these compositions even better? So first off, goats. This is the 3-3. You've got the 3 tanks, the 3 supports. They basically walk onto something and destroy it. Like, they absolutely obliterate whatever they go onto. And with the nature of the strength of the healing and the synergy between the 3 tanks that we have, through their hard shield and damage, through the charge and projected bubbles, and the matrix, high ground control, and bomb, these 3 tanks work together very well, not just in their protective capabilities, but also in their ultimates. 3 supports here, you always need a Lucio to speed your tanks around. I need a better color. Let's get green. You always need a Lucio to speed your tanks around. Brig is always there to provide shield bash opportunities, to provide that AoE healing, which is needed for Ghosts because the amount of HP that is needed to be upkept, even though Inspire is not a very strong heal over time, it is consistent, and also her armor pack is excellent at keeping tanks up as well. In addition, her damage, while insignificant, is better when focused onto a small target. Her shield bash is effective on a single target, her whip shot is better on a single target, and it can also be used to remove targets. So and then really only question that you have when it comes to goats, ignoring like different variations of goats, we'll focus on this right now, is which of these 3 supports that you want to do. So if I pull up I can't remember my hotkey for this. Control Shift B. No, it's Control Alt B. Control Shift B. Haha! I did it! Ha ha ha! Okay, so with Moira's basically is glut of healing. So there's definitely better ways of describing that, but we're not gonna concern ourselves with it. So Moira just was the initial healer of goats, because somebody looked at goats and said, that's a lot of tanks, that's a lot of damage they're going to be doing, and a lot of damage they're going to be taking. What healer is best at supporting that? And the natural answer is Moira. Moira does more healing than Zenyatta. Moira does more healing than Ana, and it's not even close. Even a good Ana would, especially in short to medium length fights, would pale in comparison to a good Moira in terms of how much healing could be output. So Moira was the obvious choice, but the problem is that the more people realize the power of goats, and the more people realize just how much healing Inspire Amp can do, the more they realize that, hey, there's a better way of playing this, and that's with Ana. Especially after the Nano Boost buff, Ana healing, but significantly more utility. And the reason why this came out as well is because as goats got to be more meta, more people started to run goats, and the people started to realize, gee, Ana versus Moira goats, Ana actually has the advantage, because if the fight goes really, really fast, Moira has the advantage, but the other team has the advantage of speeding out and not taking the initial engagement. So after that Moira uses her healing orb, maybe after she uses a lot of her healing spray, then we can engage, and that Moira is going to run out of healing pretty fast. Whereas our Ana is never going to run out of healing, right? Our Ana is going to be able to hit a nade. Our Ana is going to be able to hit a sleep. Nano Boost is a lot better than Coalescence, right? So Ana started to be better, not just because she got a buff, but also because goats versus goats started to become a legitimate counter discussion, something that a coach or a team captain would have to think about, right? What is the enemy team going to run? Moira versus Moira, do you want to play an Ana and have the advantage in that matchup? But then people took it a step further. You see, Moira is not an easy healer to dive, right? And Ana's kind of easier healer to dive than Moira. But then people took it a step further in terms of quote-unquote risk. And they said, what about Zenyatta? Damage, but low healing. So people started to realize that the one way to step it up even faster, very low healing, in sustained fights, but extremely high damage and discord on the main tank, meant that Zenyatta goats won the matchup nearly every single time. It didn't matter how much sustain you had. A discord on your main tank plus Diva shooting at it, Zarya shooting at it, Reinhardt swinging, Briggs swinging, Zenyatta headshots, Lucio shooting, along with the shield bash combo where you'd stun the Reinhardt first. Zenyatta was pile driving all of these compositions, right? But here's the problem. The reason why we didn't see Zen goats all the time is that Sombra and Doomfist were still very strong, and people were very well good at Sombra Doomfist dive. And goats quite hadn't been figured out all the way. People weren't as experienced with it. But as time went on, we've seen, Sombra Doomfist is still good, or was, but Goats teams got even better at protecting their Zenyatta. The stacks got tighter, and so the situations in which having a Zen who is vulnerable to dive became less useful. So dive as a whole wasn't as good. I'm talking about the very, very top tiers, naturally, okay? So the disadvantages of running Zen in terms of the dive ability that you could be dove and were less important. So Zen just got to be better and better. And one other thing that we forgot to mention here, in terms of ult here, ult is better, I guess would be a better way of saying it. Compared to Coalescence, Nano Boost is significantly better. But compared to Nano Boost, at least in terms of the Goats versus Goats matchup, Transcendence is best of all. Having two support ults with both Trance and Sound Barrier made Zen Goats incredibly difficult to stop. Incredibly difficult to stop, especially in the mirror matchup, because Trance keeps your tanks alive, makes them invulnerable to anything but a Diva Bomb for a long period of time, 5-6 seconds. And you could do that while keeping your Discord up if your Zenyatta is good. So that is kind of like a brief rundown of the I guess, up to date Goats versus Goats matchup. We've seen the Brigitte Shield Bash change come in, and we're, there's still people are scrimming this out and seeing how it's going to change the meta in this regard. I think it's going to make Goats a little bit weaker. I don't understand how you can state that Goats will be stronger if you nerf the damage of the most important person in Goats, who is Brigitte. But whatever. More experienced analysis? No. Analysts. There you go. Then I will go over that, and we'll see what they decide. So, okay, we're going to move on. So we spent a lot of time on just that. Goats Disruption. This one was kind of confused me. I mean, I guess you could say that all of these heroes that you have selected here are decent at Disruption. I don't really know what the purpose of this composition was. This just seems like a random adjective or a verb, or disruption, that it would be a noun. But disrupting, I guess, would be an adverb. Disruptingly, no. Disrupting would be an adjective. So, like the random adjectives that you just kind of could slap onto these heroes, I don't really know what the purpose of this composition is. So, for example, if you're trying to disrupt a bunker, this would be okay. But Doomfist would not be as good at disrupting a bunker, and certainly not Sombra. Especially if that bunker was on high ground. Now, if the bunker was on low ground, then both of these would be fine against bunkers. But usually you don't see bunkers set up on high ground. Usually it is low ground. Otherwise, they're way too easy to counter. In addition here, I guess the Mercy would be paired off with Pharah, but I still don't understand. Pharah Mercy is okay against bunker, but Pharah likes longer fights, and usually bunkers like longer fights as well. So unless your Pharah Mercy is going to be playing very aggressively, she wouldn't be as good. I don't know. This just seems like a composition without a purpose. I don't really know where you've seen this comp being run, but I've not seen this specific comp being run. Triple tank dive. Triple tank dive. So you do have the correct tanks. Okay, the Ana Lucio. The Sombra can hack. This is okay. This is fine. You have the EMP that you can take advantage. You could basically assassinate one target if all 4 of these guys can get onto one. And then your Ana Lucio can kind of work as a unit, making yourself less diveable, but also having the nano boost and the sound barrier as well. This seems acceptable in terms of DPS into this composition. I don't really have a problem with this. The win condition for this composition would just basically be to dive onto a specific target, whether that's a bunker, not as well as Sombra, like we said, but just any sort of static composition with a Zenyatta, with an Ana, and quickly get to that composition, or quickly get to the backline and just quickly assassinate the backline. So that works fine. Classic dive, I don't like how you included Ham in there. Ham has never been a part of Classic Dive and really shouldn't be a part of Classic Dive, at least until he's tested further. Sombra as well is not part of Classic Dive in any way, shape, or form. Mercy, for an extent was, so I'll let that stay. This really only is going to be Genji Tracer. Genji Tracer, you'd sometimes run Ana Lucio, you would sometimes run Mercy Zen, and sometimes you would run Lucio Zen in terms of matchup combinations, and that would slightly adjust how you play the composition over time. But I don't. Sombra's not there. Hammond ain't there. Papa. That would play very differently. So Pharmacy, this is good. This is fine. Obviously, this is fine. I don't actually like this pick. This is a maybe, but Zenyatta needs to be here as well because. While I understand that you're thinking, oh, my Mercy is hard pocketing my Pharah, right? And then, but part of the reason why Pharmacy exists is because you want to be going in aggressively off of any direct rockets that you hit, right? So you usually need a Discord, Harmony, and damage to follow up with that. And Ana does not provide that. Basically, the way you'd play Pharmacy with Ana Mercy is you play it very, very, very slow and just milk them down. Farm up your barrage, whatever. Which is okay, but Zen is definitely a possibility in how you play this composition. In fact, he's my preferred hero choice. Because, like I said, you can Discord dive onto targets as your far direct hit, etc. A couple things about your Pharmacy dive here. Soldier would be good with the Ana, like if you're running on Numbani. Genji is not good. Genji is not good. Genji, unlike the other heroes in this list, is not always going to be in a position to contribute to the dive. So if your Pharmacy hits a direct, Genji's not the pick, right? Because Genji's going to have to be set up already in a position to initiate onto that target. Otherwise, he risks using his dash to just get to the target rather than dash through the target to do damage. In addition, Widow is fine. Widow can basically always be doing damage. Tracer is fine. Tracer as well can always be doing damage. So instead of Genji here, I would like to see Sombra. So Sombra is one of those heroes that can basically stage a dive wherever. She can always be contributing to the back line. And if we're talking about Zenyatta as another opportunity here, she can also capitalize off of that Discord far better than a Genji can. At least more consistently. Okay. Sheriff, protect the McCree. Looks fine to me. I've played up a lot against the compositions using Ryan instead of Winston. I think Reinhardt's inferior, and so does my mentor. But Reinhardt is occasionally used. I would be lying if I said he wasn't. So, just a brief rundown of how Protect the McCree or a Sheriff is played. These 4 function as a single unit, like a death ball, and these kind of just go their separate ways. There's the very situation about where these 2 are situated. So, this is a double CC. Brigitte shield bashes the target, and you flashbang and then fan the hammer, okay? Or double headshot or whatever you'd prefer to do. Meanwhile, your Zenyatta is discording who you're shield bashing and headshotting them, and your Lucio as well as doing headshots or whatever sort of damage onto that specific target. So this is a burst, like you're going to speed onto a target with your Lucio, shield bash that target, flashbang that target, and discord that target, and nuke that target. So it's a very, very tight, compact, quick burst combo. In fact, I'm thinking about releasing a video soon to kind of discuss me coaching my team on this composition. And then Winston and Diva. Diva's job is kind of protect backline a little bit. But she is more concerned about shutting down an individual eating threat. So like if you're playing this into an Ana, D.Va needs to be make sure that she eats nade, because that can mess up your burst combo. She needs to be shutting down any enemy damage that you're trying to do while you are discording the target. And that goes for Winston as well, although Winston is more comfortable leaving the group altogether. Winston, especially if they're running something like a Widowmaker or a Hanzo, his job is basically to just jump over to the Widowmaker and shut her down. Not even kill her, just make sure she's not shooting your less ranged backline while you're executing your play. Whereas D.Va is going more for, like I said, the nades. Let's say they're running a Pharah, she would just mash into the Pharah while you're trying to execute this play. So these guys don't really join in on your burst combos all the time. They're often like focusing on what the external factors are being involved. Hey Neo, how's it going? Double sniper, fine to me. Looks good to me. Looks good to me. Nothing wrong with that. It was for a period of time on the ladder we saw Ryan Zarya double sniper, but that was just because people were like meta slaves to the Brig, and because Winston D.Va weren't really good with Brig there. People just thought, oh, Ryan Zarya, and then when we want to, we can swap our Widow to Brig and then have our meta, like Wombo combo set up with like the Grav Dragon. But Ryan Zarya is really not that good with double sniper, unless you have to, like if you have to run it in King's Row, maybe. But especially in first point, you'd want the Orisa instead, and on any other map, you'd want the Winston D.Va. So this is good. Going on down, anti-dive, Winston D.Va. Oof. Okay, so far this is fine. I don't like this pick. This is old school. I just had a discussion with one of my buddies yesterday about this and Hog is not as good at this whole anti-dive concept. He doesn't, outside of his hook, he doesn't provide any sort of anti-dive discouragement. And hook is not always a guarantee, and he feeds a lot of ult charge. You used to see a lot of Orisa Hog, an anti-dive, but that transition from Orisa D.Va, because people have kind of figured out that D.Va is incredibly important in anti-dive. So I don't really like his position here. I don't like Moira. I'll talk more about Moira in a second. McCree, I don't like Widow or Soldier either. Widow, maybe if you're talking about like a Junkertown, but that doesn't really classify as anti-dive. That would classify as more like a double sniper with anti-dive properties. McCree is fine. I would say like McCree Junkrat. Maybe a Hanzo. Some sort of CC or really high damage that's consistent even in lower ranges. Because you got to remember, Soldier is a very diveable target, right? The reason you want Soldier is you want sightlines. And the same thing goes with Widow. So unless your Widow's playing off in Narnia, which not on every single map is not always a guarantee, these are diveable targets, whereas McCree is much harder to dive, especially after the rework. So I would rather see more Junkrat opportunities, more Hanzo. I guess you could find space for a Roadhog. I don't really know. Ana is not great into anti-dive. She's okay. You definitely, I feel like you'd want a Zen Mercy and maybe a Brig. You could no, not a Brig. See, the problem with anti-dive is anti-dive tries to survive as long as possible in poke stages, right? So you want to put out as much work as you can in poke stages before the fight starts, because if your Orisa Halt can get out of Winston bubble, if your McCree headshotting their D.Va can make her burn half her matrix, then that can make staging the dive really difficult, right? Really difficult, which is what you want. But the problem is Brig isn't really good in anti-dive. She does nothing until they actually dive her. And when they dive, the only thing that she'd be contributing is her shield bash, which is significantly nerfed. So I'm a little hung up on the Brig. Maybe I'll give Brig a maybe. Moira's okay at not being a solo target dive, but she doesn't do great against anti-dive because eventually she runs out of resources. So like, I don't know about the Moira. I don't know. There's a lot of problems with this composition, none of which have really I can really give great answers to, unfortunately. I definitely don't that Widow and Soldier don't belong here. I feel like maybe instead of running the Moira Mercy, I think Ana Lucio would be better, because you'd have much better sustain. You'd have your nade, you'd have your sleep, you'd have your amp, you'd have your boop, which are all excellent at anti-dive. And I don't, and Lucio and Ana are more comfortable in living in sustained poke wars because their healing doesn't run out. They're not as cooldown reliant in Poke Wars. So in other words, as an Ana, you wouldn't be just chucking sleep or nade, right? You wouldn't be like, oh no, I lost my cooldown. And Lucy wouldn't be blowing amp and long range distance fights. They would be able to contribute, as well as you having a defensive ult, which is always important against dive, because if you don't have a defensive ult and the enemy team is running a Sombra or a Genji, which are, you know, standards for dive, then what are you going to do once they pull ults out of their bag? Like, even a Primal Rage would disrupt this composition pretty bad if you didn't have a way to meet it. So now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like Ana Lucio go better here. Moira is sometimes used in double support compositions, double support quad tank compositions, because Ana would be too easy to dive, but that doesn't really classify as anti-dive. That classifies more as just quad tank. Isn't Reaper or Hog good for anti-dive? May as well. They have anti-dive properties, but they're not good anti-dive, no. Reaper is screwed over by Matrix. He does, and the only thing he can really shoot is Winston or Diva. It's very difficult to consistently kill or deal with a Genji, a Tracer, or a Sombra, or a Pharmacy. What else would be it? A Pharmacy. Doomfist you do okay against. Okay, Treehouse. Like I said, this feel like this goes up to our, what was it? What were you? Treehouse, disruption. This feels more like a disruption. Treehouse. This is fine. We saw this is like stage 3 of Overwatch. A lot of this composition was being run. I'm glad to see that we're running Diva here and not Hog. Nothing wrong with that one. This is basically you stay up on high ground. You just pummel the enemy team as they try and get to you. Hey, Dragonfly, how's it going, buddy? Bunker. This is I guess this works in so bunker. Let's see what we do with this. This is really similar. I guess you're just saying, oh, Treehouse and bunker are pretty much the exact same thing. So I guess what you're doing is you're just giving us more options for Treehouse. I guess that's okay. It would have been simply easier just to combine these two, and we'll see how many of these choices are bad. Like, this is not a good bunker choice. Zen alone is fine. You could theoretically run Honor Lucio, like I said, we did with the counter dive. Again, soldiers, I don't like Soldier here. I don't like Widow here, because they, even though Healing Station would be AoE, I just feel it'd be way too, like, Soldier is way more easily bullied by close range targets. Torb is, I guess, fine. Hanzo Junkrat, I guess, fine. So you could kind of clump these up with your Widow and just have your Widow on another sight line, I suppose. Hog is situational. I don't really like Hog, but he is used in bunker comps. I'd be lying if I said he wasn't. So, okay. Wouldn't have to get shut down by Matrix too. Yeah. What isn't screwed over by Matrix? Yeah, pretty much. Reaper is just a lot more vulnerable to Matrix because he relies on tight windows of opportunity. Like when you're that close to the enemy, you're gonna get killed unless you kill them quickly. And Matrix just says, "Oh, you can't kill them quickly. I'm gonna press this button and make sure that you don't kill them quickly, and then in the meantime, you just die." So it's not like a Tracer or even a Genji or Pharah who can milk the Matrix before committing to a play. It's like Reaper has to commit. He's only got a period of time, and the reason why you don't see Reaper run in competitive play at the highest tier, not talking about GM or top 500, that's not the highest tier. I'm talking about like contenders, Overwatch League, is because the communication between the teams is so good that if they say, "Oh, Reaper," like that just means Reaper's focused instantly. Reaper doesn't get those windows of opportunity that he does get in competitive play, to where he can take advantage of the diva being distracted, or really anybody being distracted, because Reaper's again screwed over by cooldowns. Pirate ship. Yep, looks fine to me. Orisa, yeah, this looks fine. I think sometimes we'd see Junkrat in this as well. Occasionally, but looks fine to me. Okay, so overall, this composition had a lot going for it. I think, or this cheat sheet had a lot going for it. I thought it was decent. I thought it gave a really good insight for a lot of different compositions and why they were run. I think my biggest bone to pick is I felt like not a lot of them, but multiple compositions had heroes that just didn't belong in there at all. It wasn't even like, oh, maybe, no, they just didn't belong in it at all. And that was my biggest problem with it. That and also a brief description of how the compositions would function would have been useful as well. Like, I would have appreciated explaining what disruption means. I'm open to learning. If that's a composition you know about, I've read about from another coach, or have seen run, I would love to hear what's the purpose of disruption here. Is that anti-bunker? Because that would be more along the lines of triple tank dive, and and disruption with triple tank dive wouldn't have a Genji instead of a Sombra. So I think a brief explanation of what the win condition for the composition, not even like 2 sentences each, would have been something that would have improved this guide as well as having made fewer errors with this. So I am not going to give you a perfect score, but I do want to say that this is a good content. This is not bad content. This is educational for the vast majority of players. I think this is well done. It looks visually nice. So I'm going to give you the... Where's my hammer?
Not bad.
Tolerable. A little delayed.